This episode of the Skift podcast features a discussion from a recent online Skift event. You can find out more about Skift forums and other special events at forum.skift.com. Please welcome the Group President of Consumer Operations, Technology, and Emerging Businesses at Marriott International, Stephanie Linnartz, in conversation with Skift hospitality reporter Cameron Sperance.
Good day, everyone. I'm Skift hospitality reporter Cameron Sperance, and joining me today is Marriott's Stephanie Linnartz. Thanks for joining us for Skift Forum Asia, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me, Cameron. Great to be with you.
Great. Well, let's just dive right in. I mean, it continues to be such an unprecedented year for global travel, no doubt about it. Stephanie, how have Marriott's customer expectations really changed with respect to staying at one of your hotels this year?
Yeah, it unprecedented, I think, is the word of 2020 for sure, because the impact to travel in our business is really like nothing we've ever seen before. Just real briefly, at the height of the downturn, our business was down 95%. And I'm happy to say, though, we think we've really turned the corner, with the second quarter being the worst point, and things getting better every week and every month since then. But as it relates to customer expectations, I think, obviously the health and safety protocols are of the utmost importance to customers who are traveling these days. So we've always been very focused on the cleanliness and safety and security of our hotels, but we have taken it to a new level because of COVID-19 and the current situation. We've set up a global cleanliness council with both internal Marriott International experts on hotel operations and food safety, as well as external experts, and put together a very, very robust set of protocols for our hotels globally around, wearing masks. We've made it mandatory that both guests and associates wear masks, deep cleanings both during and in between stays, particularly deep cleaning in public areas with electrostatic sprayers that have very strong sanitizers, markers for social distancing, plexiglass at things like the front desk, et cetera. But really making sure that guests who are traveling feel as comfortable and safe as possible in our properties.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's so many elements of your own cleaning program that seem pretty unique to Marriott. I'm curious, I mean, looking ahead, are there any aspects that you think are going to stay with the company well after the pandemic has come to an end, hopefully sooner than later?
Yes, hopefully sooner than later, for sure. I mean, I think some of the things that will stay with us are the adoption of some of the technology we're seeing as a result of the pandemic. I think the hotel industry has been a little bit behind the airline industry in terms of the airline industry has had the mobile boarding pass for a long time. I think everybody uses that now. But we've seen a real increase in the adoption of mobile key at our hotels as one example. So people using their phone to check in and check out, and as a key to get into their guest room. We've seen that adoption increase during this time. And that's the type of thing I think that will continue on as people get more comfortable using technology, either to get into their room or to order food and beverage or for other purposes at the property. So the use of technology, I think, is something that will stick with us.
Absolutely. Now, guest sentiment, I mean, as travelers have returned to your hotels following some of the tougher lockdowns that we saw earlier this year, I mean, what are you hearing from them? I mean, are they happy to see these new protocols? Are they really demanding them? Or are they just really happy to be out of the house?
I think people are really anxious to get out and travel again. We've seen, I mentioned at the depths of the pandemic, our business was down 95%. We're now probably down about 65% globally, doing much better in China, incidentally. That business has recovered much more quickly. But I think people are really happy to get out of their homes and travel. We saw this summer a real increase in drive-to leisure business. That's really the first to recover. Hotels in leisure locations, drive-to markets globally, doing better, for example, than hotels in urban locations that are more dependent on business travel or group. But I think people love to travel. We found that when we spoke to our guests, 50% of the people that took a trip this summer really felt comfortable taking another trip this fall. So we're going to build off that sentiment and love of travel. that people have. And again, things are getting better every week, every month as we work through this. I think the last thing to come back will be international travel and big conventions, things of that nature.
Now that's interesting hearing kind of that 50% number. From a confidence standpoint, I mean, I know there's been sort of this question of heading into fall and winter months, is the leisure travel that's led the rebound going to fall off a cliff, so to speak? But I mean, that sounds like it may not.
No, I think the fact that people can, a lot of people, offices aren't open yet, so they can work from anywhere. And kids, in some cases, not all kids are back to school. They're doing hybrid learning. So we've really seen an increase of people wanting to take extended trips and, work from, one of our hotels or one of our resorts somewhere. We've actually seen a big uptick since the beginning of fall in our homes and villas business, with people renting homes for extended periods of time to work, and perhaps if they have children, their kids can go to school from there as well.
Interesting. And yeah, I mean, speaking of work from anywhere, you do have the work from anywhere initiative, and this is something we've been reporting on quite a bit because, at first, I think there was a little bit of head scratching of hotels being pitched as alternative office spaces, but I mean, there are a lot of entrants into the space. So, I mean, what can you tell me about your own program?
Yeah, so we are going to roll out work from anywhere with Marriott Bonvoy, with a very tight connection to our loyalty program. And we will roll this out at starting with a number of markets and hotels in the United States, some in Asia, some in Europe. And you'll be able to get day passes for the hotel. And depending on the brand, we'll have different offerings. The day pass will come with access to the amenities of the hotel. You may get a food and beverage credit, discounted parking, et cetera, depending again on the property or the brand. But the idea is that people really want to get out of their homes, new scenery and a break. And our hotel rooms, as I mentioned, the highest level of cleanliness. You have desks, great Wi-Fi, private bathroom, et cetera. So we think that this is going to be quite interesting for especially talking to some of our top accounts about experimenting with an option for people to get out of their homes and work at one of our hotels and purchase one of these day passes.
And I've been curious, as far as this concept, does it have longevity? Because we saw earlier this month an actual co-working company partner with a smaller hotel brand, but I mean, even that partnership where you have an actual workspace provider has some in the real estate community saying this trend could last beyond when occupancy and daily rates at a hotel go back to pre-pandemic levels. So I mean, what's your own outlook on how long we may be seeing this trend?
Yeah, I mean, I think aspects of it could last beyond the pandemic, as you see companies allowing people to work from different cities perhaps they hadn't thought of before, and then people wanting to get out of their homes maybe a day or two a week, right? Versus working 5 days a week from their home. But I do believe that over the medium term, as we head into next year, people do want to get back to their offices and they want to get back to working with people. Well, there's a lot you can do from home through technology. There's nothing like being with people when it comes to strategy sessions or team building, or if you're new to a company, training. So I am a big believer that we'll also see people get back into their offices, just like kids want to get back to school. I know my kids do. This school from home is okay for a while, but they're anxious to get back with people. And I think the same thing will happen with people wanting to get back to the office at least part of the time.
Absolutely. Well, looking at Asia as sort of a bellwether for how the industry may recover. I mean, your own boss, Arne Sorensen, said that China may be back to pre-pandemic revenue levels as early as sometime next year. Given just sort of the rapidness of China's recovery, how is that informing your own outlook on how the rest of the world may recover with respect to Marriott?
Yeah, absolutely. China is recovering quite nicely. I mentioned that at the height we were down 90, 95. Globally, we're down 65% or so. In China, our business is only down 20% versus last year. And to your point, we will be back to 2019 levels, we believe, in 2021, so next year. So China really, of course, the virus came out in China earlier in January, and I think they did a very good job of containing the virus and managing it. And as a result of that, we're seeing our business do quite well there. It is interesting, though, it is much more domestic business, China for China, than we saw before. As an example, pre-pandemic, about 70% of the guests in our hotels in China were from China, the rest being from other parts of the world. Now I'd say it's probably 95% of the guests in our hotels in China are from China. So there's not as much outbound business from China because of the pandemic, which is benefiting our hotels in the country. But I do think that's a good sign of the ability to get back to business and get back to life, even before there's a vaccine, as long as you can manage the virus in a safe way for people.
Absolutely. And I mean, as a follow-up to that, I know China represented very significant outbound travel base, but given the fact that domestic travel is really leading the way right now, I mean, do you see any long-term impact there where maybe it's not more Chinese travelers are looking to just stay within the country because they've had 6 or 7 months to really get to know their own country rather than going to, say, the US or Europe?
Yeah, I think time will tell, but again, I'm a believer that people globally love to travel outside of their own countries and see the world. Whether we have a lot of, historically have seen a lot of Chinese guests travel to other parts of Asia Pacific, Thailand, as one example, being a big market where we saw Chinese travelers visit, but throughout Europe, of course, and North America. So I'm a believer that people love to see their own countries, and will certainly continue to see China be the biggest source market for China, but that when the time is traveling outbound again, because people love to experience new countries, new cultures, new experiences. And I think that's a global thing.
Great. And, moving past geography and more about differentiation in market segments, I mean, here in Asia, after months of outperformance by the economy scales, which we saw around the world, and I know in the US too, economy extended stay was really doing the best at the depth of the pandemic. But since August, I mean, luxury hotels have been posting very impressive gains in China as well as other parts of the world. I mean, what are you seeing from the market scales and where travelers are tending to make the most demand?
Yeah, I do think that the luxury segment is quite resilient. We have about 450 luxury hotels in 65 countries globally, 8 luxury brands: Ritz-Carlton Reserve, Edition, Bulgari, W, JW, Luxury Collection, to name a few. So we are very strong in the luxury space, and we are seeing the luxury consumers really wanting to get out and travel and see the world. So I'd agree that that's a segment that, particularly from a leisure perspective, we're seeing a lot of demand.
Great. Well, moving on, I do want to get updates on both the Bonvoy program, as well as we've had a lot of feedback from readers wanting to know more about homes and villas. So real quick, last year you told Skift executive editor Dennis Shaw that north of 40% of Bonvoy signups were from China. I know it's been a brutal year for travel, but I mean, are you still seeing strong interest in the loyalty program, especially from China?
We are, yeah. We have about 140 million plus global members, and the past few years, a big percentage of the new signups coming from Asia Pacific and China specifically. So last year, when we weren't in pandemic times, we were seeing about a net 1 million new members a month sign up, including in the Asia Pacific region. Of course, given what's going on right now, that has slowed down a bit, but we are seeing our members still engaged. We're doing a lot to make sure that they understand some of the offers we have for them for staycations, as one example. And Asia and would be a good example, and particularly in China, where we're seeing a lot of staycations, and we're doing special packages and offers for our Marriott Bonvoy members to keep them engaged with us. There's properties in parts of China and including Hong Kong where we're seeing our hotels full on the weekends with people having staycations because they want to, again, get out and enjoy time with their families and friends. So we're keeping our Bonvoy members very engaged. And Homes and Villas by Marriott International is a great example of an offering we have for our Bonvoy members.
Great. And I mean, maybe this is kind of a good tie between the two. Since we have seen leisure travel really lead the recovery right now compared to corporate transient, I mean, how do you adjust a loyalty program like Bonvoy to really cater maybe more to the leisure traveler than the business traveler than maybe you would have in the past?
Well, as I mentioned, we're putting together special offers and programs for our Marriott Bonvoy members. We have Marriott Bonvoy Escapes, where if you're a member, you can get a 25% discount off of our rates. We have Marriott Bonvoy Escapes at our luxury properties, where you can get a credit, a statement credit for the stay, where you can get $250 or $300 for use at the spa. So we're putting together a lot of packages and offerings in the leisure space for our Bonvoy members is a way to keep them engaged. And again, making sure that we are also, that they're aware that we have programs where you actually don't need to be staying in our hotel. We have a program called Eat Around Town with Marriott Bonvoy, where you can earn and utilize your points at local restaurants. So we're making sure that our marketing efforts inform our members of things that they can do with their points and ways they can engage with us, even if they are not staying overnight in one of our hotels. So we're really, really leaning into some of the other ways to engage with our members.
Absolutely. And I'm sure our friends in the local restaurant industries really appreciate that.
For sure.
So for Homes and Villas, I mean, short-term rentals have been quite a bit of a bright spot for the industry this year. And I mean, has the outlook on this division changed at all in light of COVID, since customers maybe view this as one way to really have control over their travel experience?
Yeah, we've seen a big growth in our business, Homes and Villas by Marriott International. I should note it is still overall, though, a relatively small business for us. When we launched in 2019, we had about 2,000 homes, and we are now up to probably about 12,000 homes. So it has grown quite a bit since our launch, but still, in the scheme of things, relatively small. But we've seen really the business do quite well this year because of COVID. People want the safety and security of the Marriott International kind of stamp of approval. We only work with highly vetted HMCs, housing management companies. We started with about 24 partners. Now we're up to about 70 HMCs we work with. But we have very strict standards for our homes, brand standards, 1+ bedrooms, washer, dryer, a whole list of things that must be met to be in the premium or luxury space. And I think the best part of Homes and Villas is that you can earn and you can utilize Marriott Bonvoy points. And as a matter of fact, over 90% of the people who are renting our homes are part of Marriott Bonvoy. So it's very clearly a real win. And we've only seen that business increase during the pandemic. Again, particularly this fall, we're seeing people book shorter in, like the booking window is shortened. People are booking shorter in, and they're also booking for longer periods of time and larger homes, all leading to this idea that people are going to, if they're working remotely and perhaps their kids are going to school remotely, maybe they'll rent a home for a month and take an adventure as a family. So we've seen the business do quite well during this time.
That's great. And I mean, looking ahead, I mean, do you see, what growth opportunities do you see for Homes and Villas? I mean, are there regions of the world that you'd like to expand this product to, or I mean, how do you make this, as you said, relatively small part of the company even bigger?
Yeah, we'll continue to grow Homes and Villas by Marriott International very thoughtfully. Again, we want to stay in the premium and luxury space. We have very strict standards. So by the nature of those standards, it's going to be a select group of homes that participate in homes and villas. But we plan to grow the business thoughtfully. In many, many cases, the homes are in places where we don't have hotels. So they're new destinations for our Marriott Bonvoy members. And again, the ability to both earn and redeem Marriott Bonvoy points is very attractive offering for our Bonvoy members. Our idea is to make Marriott Bonvoy as deep and rich as possible from a travel perspective, which means, of course, offering 30 different hotel brands from the highest of luxury to more moderately priced hotels, but also offering homes. And I mentioned a few moments ago the ability to earn and redeem points at restaurants, local restaurants, etc. Great.
Well, I like to end these conversations by looking ahead. So, Stephanie, $1 million question. As we covered earlier in the call, recovery on track as early as next year in China, but in other parts of the world, we are looking at a couple of years away, if not longer. So, how does Marriott move forward with such geographic disparity in recovery timelines?
Yeah, I believe that travel will be back. I'm an optimist, and I believe it will be back sooner rather than later because whether it's business travel, leisure travel, a mix of the two, I believe people love to travel. It's one of the great experiences in life, whether it's a more local trip in your own neighborhood or country or part of the world or an international trip. I think travel enriches our lives. And I think all people, we talk a lot about millennials and Gen Z loving travel, but I think even Gen X and boomers and other generations, depending on where in the world, that you have different names for these generations. But I think people love to travel, and I'm hopeful that travel will be back sooner rather than later. And we are going to make sure that we're in 140 plus countries where we're located. We're going to be ready to welcome them with open arms.
Excellent. Well, let's get back on the open roads sooner than later. So, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us at Skift Formation today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Cameron. Have a great day.
You too.